Recording now. And as I mentioned also in the emails that you received, you will be able to watch these meetings afterwards as well. So if there is a meeting at one point that you're missing, you'll be able to rewatch it later. And the recordings will be shared together with the slides. And as usual, when it comes to online meetings, we would remind you that only open your mic when you're given the floor, just to make sure that the sound quality is as good as possible. Okay. For the agenda, you have seen this already in the email that you received yesterday, but as mentioned, there will be quite a few updates on our part when it comes to the next EURAXESS project and the biennial conference, but also some IT updates. And we're also happy to have two colleagues from Netcompany with us today that will be informing us about the extranet survey that many of you have taken part of a few weeks ago. We will also have some information on the conference on research careers, as well as the MFF and the ERA Act. And as mentioned, towards the end, there will be a discussion on how to set up these meetings moving forward. So I'm now going to give the floor to Slaven, and he's going to give an update on the preparations for the next project and a bunch of other things. So Slaven, please go ahead.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Vera, and good afternoon to all of you. It's the first time you're meeting after the summer, and I think it's a very good idea from Vera to start with these monthly meetings. A lot of things are happening while preparing this agenda. We actually saw that there are quite some updates since the June BHO meeting, and normally there is summer in between, so not much can happen. Nevertheless, quite some things have happened, and my guess is this is going to be similar for the next months, if not years. So that's why this recurrent monthly meeting will help everyone be aligned, will help you in a very pragmatic manner get updated on what is happening, at least when it comes to the EU level developments. And what is also very positive is this will release some pressure from the BHO meetings, because usually what happens now with the BHO meetings, every 6 months you receive a ton of presentations from our side, which unfortunately does not give sufficient time for us to discuss. And with this approach, we do hope that during the BHO meetings we will have more time to discuss less policy and more practical discussions. Updates from the EC on the policy side. So we'll talk first a bit about the EURAXESS project and about the connected biennial conference. Then indeed, as we mentioned, IT updates. And then we'll focus on two policy developments, which is ERA Act and one is a policy development, one is a bit more than policy development, which is the next multi-annual framework program for research and innovation. And then finally, we will give you a bit of information on the conference on research careers. This is going to take a bit of time, but I hope it will be interesting for you. So the next EURAXESS project, during the last BHO, we gave quite a detailed presentation of this. We are, I think, quite happy that this time the practice is a bit different than in the past. In the past, we could only discuss the project when the work program it was adopted, and usually from the moment the work program is adopted, then also the call opens. This will be the same this time. But the difference is now that the draft versions of the work program are uploaded in the comitology register. And back in June, 18th of June, I believe, when we had our last BHO meeting, I have at that time presented the latest version, which is the version 2 of the work program. End of June, so 2 weeks after BHO, an updated version of the work program has been uploaded on the comitology register. And I will now focus mostly on these changes. Most of these changes have been triggered by our discussion during the BHO meeting. We had quite a constructive discussion during the BHO meeting, where several of you made suggestions, recommendations, flagged some potential words that were being used that might confuse, that might result in some confusion. So we have very much listened to all your comments, and this has been translated into the updated description of this next EURAXESS project. So currently we are at the version 3 of 30 June 2025. We do expect still one more update, although it should not be changing. It should not be changing the core of what the actions are about. So what is the difference between version 3 and the version 2 that you have seen back in June? And by the way, you can see also the link here. Basically, it's the same link as in the past, but then in the URL, the number 2 is changed by number 3. So when there's a new version, it's going to be number 4. But basically, what are the changes? So a couple of things I've already mentioned in the BHO meeting of June, which have not at that time been reflected in the work program action description. One of those was the fact that as part of the organization, as part of this project, also the biennial conferences will be organized. This has also triggered an increase in the budget. So in the version 2, the budget for this action was 4.5 million, and now it is 4.9 million. Already with 4.5 million, this was already the largest action for EURAXESS so far, and with 4.9, it goes, of course, a bit further, but this will definitely be used. This increase will be used for the organization of the biennial conferences. Then, while it was not explicitly mentioned in the previous version, on the recommendation of several of you, we have made two things very clear. First was that as we are moving to this approach of the consortium, we have a coordinator, and I'll get back to that, and behind that a consortium. We have clarified that the consortium will be composed of organizations designated as bridgehead organizations. So only the BHOs can be a consortium member. At the same time, we have also clarified that the support to third parties continues to be there in this. It was in the current project that is soon finishing. It is the case. It will also be possible in the next one, and we have specifically mentioned that the support to third parties can include EURAXESS service centers and EURAXESS contact points. This was not mentioned as such. Normally, it should have also been defined under the previous work program description, but in this case, we have made it very specific. This does not mean that the support to third parties can only go to EURAXESS service centers and EURAXESS contact points, but we have made it explicit, so there is no confusion or post-discussion afterwards. What we have also clarified, and which I have mentioned during my presentation in June, but which was not as such reflected in the work program action description, was that there was this approach of more flexibility, where currently, if you have a 3-year project, everything is pretty much defined at the proposal stage, with some flexibility throughout. Now, we understand that this has quite some advantages, but also a bit more disadvantages. And for that, we have clarified in the updated version of the action description that the proposal should have a detailed work plan for the first year, but that the detailed work plans for year 2 and 3 will be at a certain month, and it is usually 2 months before it starts that year, should be agreed with the granting authority, which is the European, which in this case is the European Commission. Of course, this does mean that when it comes to budget, you cannot spend everything in the year 1. Otherwise, you cannot do much in year 2 and year 3. But when it comes to the details, you have to be quite detailed for the first year, and for second and third year, it's good to have some idea what could be there, but doesn't have to be worked out in detail. And of course, some budget has to be reserved for this subsequent, for this second and third year. Of course, this is under the assumption that you will go for a grant of 3 years. This is actually up to you. The current grant is for 3 years with a slightly lower budget. our assumption was that most probably you will go again for the 3 years, because to go for the 4 years means you will have a lighter annual budget. But eventually, this is up to you. We would advise against going below 3 years, because we would like to be sure that there is funding also during the period we are moving from one MFF to another. And if you would go for a 2-year grant, then you might be at a moment where that might be difficult to allocate funding. Everybody who has been around knows that when we go from one MFF to another, there is some time before things settle. And of course, a lot of this will depend on the negotiations. So if the negotiations go well, everything is adopted on time, then normally the risk of having budgetary gaps is limited. But if the negotiations are more complicated, more lengthy than expected, then that could mean that the adoption happens very last moment, and then by the time you have your work programs adopted, etc., 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 it takes some time. So that's why I would like to advise against going below the 3 years. So like this, we are already in the next multi-annual framework program with this project. So that this then we also made it clear. It was more of an error, I would say, where talent attraction was mentioned, which could be understood as not a core activity of EURAXESS. So this has been corrected. Now it's clear that talent attraction is a core activity of EURAXESS. We also made it clear that EURAXESS, while on one hand it has to focus on its core activities, its core competences, that it should look for synergies with other networks and relevant other core activities. So things that are relevant to what EURAXESS does, but are not part of the core activities of EURAXESS. This is, of course, where EURAXESS should look for synergies with, and we just mentioned 2 things, which is entrepreneurship and talent scouting. And in addition to that, there have been various minor adjustments, some typos, but nothing really that changes the content. And really the core of the action is still the same as what was presented in back in June. So this is on the next EURAXESS project. I know we should have Q&As at the end, but this is usually a very important and perhaps the most important presentation or the updates I will share with you. So I do actually welcome now any questions you might have. Raise your hand, and then I will pass you the floor. And in the chat, nothing. Here comes to questions. Hi, Lydia. So no hands raised. All right. That's good. Of course, this topic is also going to be something which we'll be bringing up every monthly meeting. So where are we here now on this project? So as I mentioned, there is a slightly different approach. I think for the paperwork side, slightly simpler approach, where we don't longer work with list of grants to we don't longer identify all the BHOs in the work program. This has some disadvantages which we have seen in the past, especially when there's a change of the BHO. And decision was taken to put the coordinator of the project in the work program. So the next and hopefully probably the final revision of the work program will include the name only of the coordinator. And that coordinator can build a consortium, as mentioned in the action description, that can consist only of EURAXESS BHOs, and the third parties that receive financial support can be service centers and contact points. So a big and important step and new step compared to the past is the selection of the coordinator. This time, this has been done a little bit more differently, and it is actually still not done. So it is we are in the middle of the process. So on the 16th of July, all the BHOs have received an email from us, informing them about this, sharing the action description, sharing the template to express their interest. And the deadline for the expression of interest is 14th of September at midnight, meaning Sunday. Sunday, right? It's Sunday. It should be Sunday. So Sunday at midnight. And then the question is, what's going to happen then? Well, we definitely hope that there is going to be some interest in coordinating this. So at this stage, we will only announce the result of this once the deadline is closed. There are, under the assumption there are organizations interested, there are basically two scenarios. One scenario is if we only have one organization interested. In that case, this organization will be automatically selected as the coordinator. You need a coordinator. Without coordinator, there is no next project. So in that case, the next it will be automatically selected, and then you will receive an email next week from us saying this is the coordinator for the next EURAXESS project. In case there is more than one eligible calls of expression of interest, then the decision will be not made by the Commission but by the BHO. Then next week you will receive an email where you will be informed that there are 2 or 3 or 4 different project coordinators. These are their descriptions, kind of short motivations, and you will be invited to make your vote. We will inform you about this, how this voting will take place, if it takes place. So if there's only one, no voting, automatic selection. If there is more than one, we go for a voting. Voting will be announced early next week. Until the end of next week, we will normally also organize a quick meeting where the ones that have flagged they have expressed their interest will, I won't say pitch, but will closely present their approach. And then each BHO will have one vote. One vote for BHOs. Where there are countries with more BHOs, we will contact you directly to that. And then you will have to discuss it basically internally and still cast only one vote. But we will need to know who will be the responsible from each country, from that country with more BHOs, to cast the single vote. So this is going to be the approach. So normally by the end of next week, we know who the coordinator is. And then from the moment we know who the coordinator is included in the work program. You all know who has been the elected coordinator by all BHOs, basically, and then the work, the detailed work can start. And the detailed work can start because you have the action description. Of course, it is only 100% final when the work program is adopted, although the likelihood of the action description being very similar, if not identical, to the current version is very close. So the work can basically start from the moment the coordinator has been announced. So that's on the EURAXESS project. I'm looking, no raised hands, no chat messages. Good. This was the most important part of the presentation. Of course, if any of you have any questions, then please feel free to contact either Vera or myself. A word about the conference. Of course, an important part of the first year of activities will be the organization of the conference. We are in 25. Last year we had Katowice conference, which means next year is again a time for a conference. It is clear, of course, that this conference will not be taking place at the beginning of the year, but more towards the end of the year. This, of course, has to do with the fact that the project has to start to organize a conference. And also for the organization of the conference, actually when it comes to the selection of the place, this is identical as it was in the past. So it's identical to Katowice, and Nantes editions. Maybe even before that, but I was not involved. So basically, it's a relatively transparent process. Everybody, and also this opened on the 18th of June during the BHO meeting. This is when the start shot was given. The deadline, we have a bit more time than for the other selection of the coordinator, because there is quite some work into preparing your candidacy. You have to showcase a variety of things, reachability of your location, which venue, how you get the city or the village involved. So there is quite some work that goes behind that. We understand that. If you are interested, or if you're already preparing it, just bear in mind that the deadline for proposals is 30th of September 2025, and often we do extend deadlines, but when it comes to selection matters, then we do not extend the deadline unless if there is nobody and there's some extremely good reasons. But we do not expect to extend neither of the deadlines, not for the panel conference and not for the coordinator. So, and then the selection will be also in October, because when you are drafting the proposal for the next EURAXESS project, of course, you need to know where is it going to take place, etc., etc. What is relatively good about this approach, I would say, is that the coordinator has a bit more of freedom to give quite some autonomy to the conference organizers if they are not organizing the conference themselves. So this can also, this is a significant workload. Coordinating this project, it's a big task. Organizing the conference, it's a big task. So we definitely understand that when both constructions are starting at the same time, it can be very difficult, unless if different entities are involved and everybody pulls sufficient, some of their weight, and everybody contributes to this as well. Of course, for the organization of the biennial conference, also from the Commission side, we will continue supporting to the extent possible. That's on the biennial conference. So the 30th of May, 30th of September is the deadline for that, and Sunday end of business is for the selection of the coordinator. Well, we are at this stage, and so in October you will know where the next biennial conference should be. So that's a bit on those two actually connected matters. And now let's go a little bit more to the IT side of things. For this, I pass the floor to Vera.
Okay, so I just want to quickly go through what we have been up to on the technical side of things in the past few months. And I can share that we've been very much focused on usability and visibility and the research journey on the portal. And what this entails is, of course, the fact that our portal does still maybe contain a little bit of material and content that is a little bit outdated. Some of the readability matters might need some improving and so on. So with this SEO and content refinement project that we have ongoing, what this entails is that we've very much been focused on improving the readability, making sure that we are fixing broken links, making sure that the content is as up-to-date as possible, and also focusing a lot on the metadata, so the information behind the information. And by having this focus, we're trying to, of course, as when it comes to search engine optimization, ensure that the search engines are rating us as highly as possible. And in that way, we'll be able to drive more organic traffic to our portal. So you might see that some of the content on the European portal has been updated. A lot of the images have been changed. And we're really putting a lot of focus on this now, as we want to make sure that the user experience is as smooth and visibly also, or visually pleasing as possible. What is coming up still is that on the portal, we will be adding some so-called blog features. And this is to ensure that the content that is on the European portal will be able to sort of highlight it better. So we can take a certain part, a certain tool, for instance, make sure that we can use this tool, for instance, in social media matters, be able to link to it directly and so on. And in this way, we can enhance the content on our website. Then an important project that we have ongoing now is the so-called EURAXESS interoperability project. And what this means is that we're wanting to integrate EURAXESS with EURAXESS in the sense that instead of the researcher having to manually upload their EURAXESS CV on the researcher profile, they can build it directly on EURAXESS instead. This is, of course, quite a process. A lot of steps are involved in this project, but we are actually at the moment now where the sort of final testing period is ongoing. So this will be launched most likely in October. So you will be able to utilize it from that point on. From my side, in terms of IT matters, the last thing I would like to mention is that you might have seen that there is currently a notice on the portal stating that we're experiencing some access issues, specifically for people who are accessing EURAXESS outside of Europe. This issue has to do with the EU login as a first instance, but it is also related to the filtering functions on our portal. So there is something that is not working as it should, or it is working too well as it should, as this issue most likely derives from some security settings that we from a EURAXESS side are not really able to do anything about. But we are currently in direct contact with the Service for Digital Services in the Commission and asking them to really give recommendations and hopefully solutions to these issues, as it does indeed seem to affect quite a lot of users outside of Europe. At this point, I'm going to hand over to our colleagues from Netcompany, Akis and Milan, who will be giving you some overview and information about the EURAXESS survey that a lot of you have taken part of. I don't know, is it Milan or Akis who will be starting?
Actually, I'm going to, as the project manager of the EURAXESS platform, I'm very happy to be here, and I will give the initial introduction, and then my colleague Akis will dive a bit deeper into the questionnaire results. So what I wanted to mention is that we had 29 entries coming from 29 countries, 32 respondents, and the way how we have positioned the actual presentation today is according to the average score connected to features and tools of the extranet. So I would in particular draw the attention to the fact that there were also some scores below 3, so around 2.8. And perhaps towards the end of the presentation, we can also talk a little bit about what next steps could be done in terms of the perhaps a deeper makeover, or even discuss in terms of how could be in general improved and make more user friendly. So Akis, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Milan. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me just share my screen so we can start off, show you the slides that we have. Okay. Go. You can see my screen probably.
We can, yes.
Thank you. So as Milan already said, we ran this questionnaire with BHOs, and the aim of this exercise was to assess the external tools in terms of usage, see how much they're being used, and how often, and if they are related to everyone's work with EURAXESS. So, as already has been said, we had 32 respondents from 29 countries. And we're starting with the study visits. You can see the study visits has a very high score, which is 4.6 out of 5. And this indicates that it was one of the most valuable tools that is being used, and it's being used quite often. The majority of respondents said they've used it within the last 6 months, which is really good. And it's one of the tools that are really useful for everyone, it seems so. Now we're going to the next one is the library. This was also has a high score of 3.8. It's been fairly used by most of the respondents. It does have some weaknesses, of course. It's reportedly it has some poor user friendliness, and the content is outdated or overwhelming, and it has some limited functionalities in terms of searching and filtering, which could be improved. Then we have a look at the calendar. That also has a high score. It's reportedly been a very relevant tool for tracking EURAXESS events, trainings, and deadlines, but it still could be improved in terms of its entries and the access restriction and some navigation challenges. Of course, this is one of the tools that, if I remember correctly, we did update with the last launch. We did last year, but there's still limitations to how much we could improve with the Drupal system. But I'm sure there's further things that could be done to improve it down the line. Then we have the BHO performance assessment tool that has a 3.5 score out of 5. It's reportedly a very structured way to plan, track, and reflect on the activities of the BHOs, but it has limited practical value just because it's a mandatory requirement. That's I understand that's why people why you use it mostly. But it has 59% usage, within the last 6 months, so it's quite high. And the extranet wall, it's potentially a very useful space for updates and light news, but it does have some limited visibility, lack of notifications, and poor user friendliness. And a lot of the respondents said that the email is a more effective communication channel. That has a 3.4 out of 5 score, and it's been used by almost a third, a little bit more than a third of the respondents, but another almost third said they have never used it before. Book the Trainer has a lower score of 3.2. It's useful as a concept. It sounds to be useful, has strong potential, but it's an outdated tool, and the visibility is limited. And by visibility, we mean how much is being exposed to users, what they know about it. Collabs is one of the lowest or the lowest score of 2.8. It's a good idea, but with potential for collaboration and knowledge sharing, but it's fully promoted and it's outdated, and a lot of the people turn to alternative platforms. You can see that 44% of respondents have never used it, and a good 28% have used it a few years ago. So the last one is a services dimension and toolkit that also has one of the lowest scores of 2.8. We reportedly being too complicated, generic, and lacking visibility and guidance. Guidance meaning that probably needs to be, people don't know how to use it. They probably need more training, workshops done in order to understand how to use it and how it can be utilized. Most of the 59% of people have never used this tool, and although a good 22 have used it in the past year. I believe this was the last one. Then we had a more generic question on what other tools could be useful for everyday work. And the response that we have categorized in 7 different areas and tools. This is a very preliminary assessment of pain points and suggested improvements. This will be analyzed further, and when we have the final report, you can probably get it from Slaven and Vera. And from a first glance, the pain points that I see here are things that we already know from previous research that we have done. So it's not something that comes as a surprise. And a lot of those are being discussed, and we're looking into improving them. So here's the rest, other 3. So expect to hear more on those in the immediate future. Thank you. If you have any questions, maybe you want me to go back to any of the other slides, let me know.
If there are no questions, Milan, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, so we'll stop my share.
There's a question by Lil. Say, what do you mean with immediate future?
Yeah, immediate future. I mean that we're working on creating the more updated final version of this report, but the implementation of those, I guess I will leave that up to Vera and Slaven to explain. But I didn't mean the actual implementation be done in the immediate future. I don't know if that answers your question.
All right. I think that's clear. Thanks a lot, Akis. We want to continue with the next set of policy. Or you also going to present something?
No. I just wanted to thank everyone for your attention, and also we're there for any additional questions and so on. Anytime you can, via Vera or Slaven, you can reach us and we can answer any questions in detail that you might have. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Bill and Akis, for your presentation, for everybody's attention. Maybe just to answer one question by Sarah, before we go to the next slide you see, which is about EURAXESS. It's about the use of images. So this is something that we will check. It has to do, the images that we are using are not royalty free, so they are bought. There's a license behind it. And so we have to see if they can be used at the national portals as well. This is not as straightforward because on one hand, everything is on the same servers, but there are different owners, legally speaking, of it. So we will we need to look into this, and then we will get back to you. And indeed, Monica, the same for social media images. It's all the.
When it comes to social media images, these are images that are not particularly bought for the commission, but these are images from Canva, if you're familiar with that tool. So in my case, creating LinkedIn post, for instance, becomes quite helpful to use this specific tool, because you can also get a lot of different images directly for your social media purposes. There is a small fee involved, but it's definitely not very big. So I would recommend that if you are working on your social media aspects and want to enhance it a bit more, I would recommend this tool for that purpose.
But in each case, everything you see on social media is created by Vera using Canva, and then if Vera is okay with that, but you can reuse those pictures that are being posted on the European EURAXESS European social media accounts. So in that case, there's no licensing challenge like we have when we just buy some stock images.
And indeed, don't hesitate to contact me either if you have any questions when it comes to enhancing your social media, or if you need any information when it comes to adding specific images, or you would like any information. Please don't hesitate.
Perfect. Then we don't have much time left. To a few more updates. So, EURAXESS, you have heard about it. We gave a presentation about it back in June. Some things have moved since then. In the next meetings, I will also continue to update you on the EURAXESS, because I think it's very relevant to the work of EURAXESS. It's also quite interesting because it's the first time you're looking at legislative approach, to a legislative approach to some of the challenges you have been working on, perhaps even over the past decades. And there's a whole part of EURAXESS that relates to research careers. Where do we stand now on the EURAXESS? So there are two important steps. One is call for evidence. Another one is stakeholder consultation. Call for evidence, if you do not have experience with this process, with the legislative process, call for evidence is when we are basically asking pretty much everyone to flag issues they are facing or that they have observed any issues. This is not the moment where the Commission is outlining what we think to address through the legislative proposal, what the angle is, what the approach is. This is the moment of collecting evidence, call for evidence. This call for evidence was launched on 6th of August, closed yesterday. We received quite some contributions despite it being during the summer, 178 contributions from 29 countries. Of course, there's some general support for the EURAXESS, but what is important in this is what it should focus on in detail, what are some constraints to keep in mind, etc. I don't have an analysis of the feedback because it closed yesterday, except who has responded and how many responses we got. But this is perhaps something to present next month. Then after the call for evidence comes the stakeholder consultation. What is the difference between the call for evidence and the stakeholder consultation is that at the moment of stakeholder consultation, the Commission is already outlining the direction in which this is going. So this is the moment where we already give an idea on what we are considering to do. And then we are consulting with the stakeholders. So we know if what we think to do actually is a good thing or not. The stakeholder consultation still needs to open. It takes longer. The period is it's much longer because you need to process the documents that we receive. The core pillars of the EURAXESS are still the same. It's a 3% target, which I think is relatively straightforward. Definitely not an easy one, or just definitely not going to be an easy one for the discussions. It's about alignment of investment and policies, so defragmentation. And the research careers, point 3, is something which is very important. At this stage, it has a relatively wide range of actions. So on one hand, it connects to the values. It's about the mobility, the fifth freedom. So let's say the true mobility, connection to the research security, knowledge valorization, AI guidance, etc., etc. It's pretty wide. We have to see eventually what is going to be part of it. It will depend on call for evidence. It will depend also, of course, on stakeholder consultation. But this is usually kind of a funnel approach where you include a lot of different topics and then you see what resonates, what has most impact. The stakeholder consultation, this is kind of very detailed timeline, but basically it will be open from October to January. That is what you need to know, from October till the end of January. And then in the first half of next year, we will share the results. We're also conducting an impact assessment, which is, of course, at that time you already have the scope done, you know pretty much what you're going to do and how, and then you do an impact assessment to see, is this going to solve the problem? Are there some side effects? What is the impact of these side effects? And then all of this, the good and the bad, is presented to the scrutiny board, and then this might result in revisions, etc., etc. But it's a very important step for the legislation. So that's on the EURAXESS. More information to follow. Probably the major high-level policy development over the summer was the adoption of the proposal for the next multi-annual framework program. You all know Horizon 2020, now Horizon Europe. The next one will be called Horizon Europe. So the same name, but, and I think it's a good thing, but then simply the dates are different. So it's Horizon Europe 28-34. So from now on, we always have to bring these numbers at least until the year 28, so we know what we are talking about. But basically on the 16th of June, after a very long college discussion, very well followed by the media, eventually the text has been adopted. A package has been adopted. Of course, it has a regulation for the new Horizon Europe, which is very much the center. It also has a specific program. It has an impact assessment, which is strongly connected to the European Competitiveness Fund. And there is also the regulation for the European Competitiveness Fund. This is done at the same time. Everybody who has been following these developments knows there has been a lot of discussion in the first half of the year whether Horizon Europe should be part of the European Competitiveness Fund or not. Many member states, but especially the stakeholders, have been extremely vocal on having it separate. Of course, from the angle of simplification, standardization, and creating economies of scale, pooling also makes sense. That's why here what we are having is a separate framework program, separate from the European competitiveness funds, but in the back office there has been looking at how can these things be very well interoperable, so we don't creating silos, and there's even some funding from the ESF that is for Horizon Europe and the other way around. The structure of it, most probably it will not change that much during the discussions. High level, of course, a lot of things will change when it comes to the nitty-gritty parts, but the current structure of the Horizon Europe is centered around 4 pillars: excellent silence, competitiveness and society, innovation, and ERA. ERA is a pillar, not a horizontal thing, but actually really a pillar here. This is quite good, I think, for us, for everybody involved in EURAXESS, because every time you have such large negotiations, you want to make sure that what you do is relevant. And here what we do have an entire pillar being dedicated to European research area, which is also very, EURAXESS is very present. I think this is quite this is reassuring at this stage. Overall budget of the proposal is 175 billion. In current prices, it's almost a doubling of the current one, but this is a proposal, and the discussions this time don't seem to be any easier than they were in the past. So of course we hope that there won't be a big change to these numbers, but let's see. A lot of things can happen. And then the period 4, so out of the 175, 16.26 billion is dedicated, is earmarked for a European research area, of which 5.3 billion is for the widening, which is a significant increase to the current work program, to the current material framework program, and a lot of the funding that we get for EURAXESS comes also from the widening wide ERA budget. So that's on that. So the difficult job definitely will be in the next years to negotiate the proposal that was made in July. Final point from my side: Conference on Research Careers 25. So we will do the same as we did last years. So we'll do the same as we did indeed last 2 years. BHO will be part. The BHO meeting will be part of the Research Careers Conference. We're going to make it a bit. The entire conference will be a bit longer. This time we foresee 3 days. So first we foresee a back-to-back event on freedom of scientific research, organized between the European Commission and UNESCO. Second day is the big plenary conference on research careers. 2025. This is where we're going to give mostly the policy updates. In day 3, we're going to have the dedicated sessions, so including a BHO meeting. Dedicated sessions, separate simultaneous different sessions. We understand this has quite some advantages, but also we know that several of you are wearing different hats. So this might, especially for those, this might require that you might need to involve different colleagues, so somebody is present in different meetings taking place at the same time. As mentioned at the beginning, day 3 is the BHO meeting. The policy updates will mostly be on the day 2 for everyone. Of course, on day 3, we'll give EURAXESS specific developments, but it will be mostly about discussion. And you want to know when? Well, most probably in the week of 17th of November. Nothing is set in stone. It's only set in stone when we have all the contractual arrangements done with the venue, but it's going to be around that week. Do not expect to get the dates from us very much in advance. It's going to be tight, as it usually is, time-wise. So the dates, the final, the confirmation of the date, it will depend on several things, but you can count it end of September, early October. So it is going to be relatively, it's going to be 6 or 7 weeks before the conference, but most likely in the week of 17th of November. Good. We have
a few remaining minutes. Thank you very much for your attention so far. You've been getting a lot of information today, and as we mentioned at the start, as we're setting the scene, we are trying to make it as useful for you as possible, but we've left the most important part for last, which is hearing from you. Unfortunately, we only have a few minutes left, but let's make them count. So in terms of the monthly meetings moving forward, we've already asked you for some feedback via email, trying to ensure that we really adapt these meetings according to your needs. Unfortunately, we did not get as many replies as we would have hoped for. However, understandably, you've been receiving a lot of surveys to fill in. We are very aware of this, so filling everything in, responding to everything can be a bit of a challenge. But the feedback that we have received so far is very much that you wish for there to be more space to actually exchange amongst yourself, but also with us, and then present ideas and share experiences. There was also mentions of updates from the EC, as we have done today, indeed, when it comes to the project, the HR excellence, governance, and so on. And also the IT matters, such as the extranet tools and any IT matters that might be relevant during that time. You can take the next slide. These are some other feedback elements that we received. Again, the calls and projects were highlighted as very important. And when it comes to the structure and engagement, there was a wish to have a consistent format every meeting. So starting with EC updates, followed by a thematic discussion, and then peer exchange towards the end. At this point, as we have 4 minutes now, I would very much like to welcome you to present any feedback that you have at this point, or any sort of input that you would like to give us as we plan the next few meetings for this year. So on the next slide, you will see here we have a few questions that we would like to verify with you first. And first of all, from a really practical standpoint, is the timing of the meeting suitable for you? So what it is the second Thursday of the month and between 2 and 3. Is this agreeable to anybody, or does anybody have any objections to this? We're seeing a lot of thumbs coming up. So, okay, so I think that we can safely say that this is a good time for everybody. Great. So let's stick to this moving forward. When it comes to the topics that you would potentially like to discuss, let's say that we would foresee a more of an exchange, anything that you would like to discuss amongst each other or with us. Would anybody like to, at this point, already mention some things, a specific topic or anything that you would like to see us bring up in this meeting? Please don't don't be afraid to speak up, or if you want, you can of course write in the chat as well. Okay, today was perfect. That's a very high score for today. Okay, so easy updates are welcome. Anything else? Would anybody like to take the floor to highlight any topics?
HRS4R update. So the first update about HRS4R is that we're not calling it anymore HRS4R. It's HR Excellence in Research Awards. But we have to see that, because if we start introducing, I know several of you are having double hats. We have to see. I'm open for having relevant HRS4R updates here, but of course these are separate, although interlinked initiatives, and we have to make sure that the agenda resonates with everyone. So in the chat, I see there's some action.
Okay, I see Elisa is saying, oh, it disappeared.
Okay, we are here. What about EURAXESS portal content?
Portal content. So do you mean, Elisa, specifically about what should be included in terms of the content, or how it should be structured?
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we have this conversation with here in these meetings? I think it would be great, and it would be an exercise for all of us. Actually, what is there, what is missing, what is overlapping, what is very an update, something like that.
Okay, I was having a bit of a hard time hearing, but to my understanding, you would like the discussion to take place here in terms of...
Yeah, in terms of like what is the content, the structure, the current structure of the portal, to see, for example, if we see that there, I think it's a good idea to have an overview, what is maybe, I mean, sections that could be updated, sections that maybe overlap a lot, things like that. And also I would bring also to another topic, actually now reading Sarah, the results of EURAXESS governance, more about what about the study that you were thinking to do about the EURAXESS governance, if there is if it has started, or how is it going?
Yeah, so indeed the topic of EURAXESS survey we put on this agenda when there is something to present. So currently we are looking at different framework contracts to do this study, but the study has not started yet. So that's a short update. But indeed, of course, when we have something noteworthy to present from our side, we will put it on the agenda, and the study is going to be one of those things, but it should not be just an agenda which is kind of us on the commission putting forward. So that's why this discussion we're having here. But I do think that indeed on the content of the portal,
I would definitely welcome the feedback and information from the BHO when it comes to the portal content and structure and so on, because indeed there is such a wealth of knowledge and also history amongst you all when it comes to the material that is on there now. And also, of course, when it comes from a researcher perspective, whatever it might be, your input would be very welcome. So Elise, I think it's a very good idea to also have those discussions in this setting. So thank you for that feedback.
Thanks. You're welcome.
I see here maybe the message of Eleanor about sharing the needs, struggles between national network to see whether there are overlaps and to then ideally organize dedicated sessions on this aspect. So I think that could be, I mean, how this could be done is most of you know that, and we don't want to rush you with surveys for this. These are monthly meetings. It has to be pragmatic. But if you are experiencing some issues and you think, you don't have to be sure you think might be also relevant for the other ones, drop an email to Vera and say, this is a topic I would like to discuss. And then we will see to which extent it resonates with the other network members. The chances are that it's a very large network, that what you're experiencing is not that unique. So it could be a very good and useful, because like this, we make sure that we address those things that are potentially solving of the issues you are facing every day.
Thank you very much for all the feedback in the chat. We are running a bit over time now, but we are definitely taking all of this into consideration. It's very welcome. And as Slaven said, please feel free to email me about any suggestions you might have, also in regards to the comments that you've given in the chat today. So I think for now we will leave it here, but thank you so much. There were so many of you joining, which is a really positive start to this series of monthly meetings. So we will stay in touch, and indeed email me. You hopefully have my email address. You'll be able to contact us with any feedback about today or the forthcoming meetings. So Slaven, unless there's something you would like to say?
No, I have answered some things in chat.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you to all of you for joining. And indeed, we'll be sending out the recording and the slides as soon as possible. We will see you next month again.
See you.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for a while.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.